The Stanley Hotel sits on a huge foothill nestled in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado and was the inspiration for Stephen King's bestseller, The Shining. My husband and I spent a couple of nights at this historically haunted hotel, and I really wanted to work on a project to celebrate the spirit of where we were staying. So I decided to create a blanket pattern that has the essence of the infamous geometric carpet in the film version of The Shining. In this video, I'll be sharing a tutorial on how to make this pattern, which is basically a solid granny hexagon using the classic red, orange, and brown carpet palette. Plus, I'll teach how to make a half hexagon and a pointed half hexagon if you want to straighten out the edges. And then finally, I'll share some tips on how I like to join the pieces together. All right, I think that's about it, so let's play some spooky hooky. Yeah, that was bad. Let's just get started, shall we? For this project, I'm using the StyleCraft Special DK yarn, which is just a sport weight or a weight 4, which requires a 3.5 to 4 millimeter hook. For this tutorial, I am using a 4 millimeter. I would highly recommend that you grab yourself some stitch markers because it's really going to help as we're trying to keep track of our corners and our sides. For gauge, each hexagon came out to about 5 inches from flat side to flat side and 6 inches from point to point. We're going to be using 3 main colors for the hexagons, a red, an orange, and a brown. To begin with our center, we're going to start with a red. Mine is called Tomato. To begin, create a magic circle or a magic ring. Chain 3. This is going to serve as your first double crochet. And now we're going to do 11 double crochets, giving us a total of 12. Once you're sure that you have your 12 double crochets, pull on your tail to cinch it closed, and then create a slip stitch into the very top of that very first stitch that you see available. Chain 2 or 3. This will serve as your first double crochet again. In the same stitch that you formed your chain 3, create a double crochet in the same stitch. Now we're going to do 2 double crochets in each stitch around, giving us a total of 24 double crochets. Once you're sure that you have 24 double crochets, add a slip stitch into the top of the first stitch available. That's round 2 completed. Fasten off and get ready for round 3. For round 3, we're going to be working with a brown color. Mine is called Walnut. Fasten on however you like best into the top of any of the stitches from the previous round. Now you have a couple of options here. You can either chain 3 to serve as your first double crochet, or you can do what I'm going to do here, which is chain 2 and then add a double crochet into the same stitch. This really helps a lot to prevent gaps if that's a concern for you, but just keep in mind that that first chain 2 does not count as a double crochet. Now it's time to start building our hexagon. For this round, we're going to start with 3 double crochets on the sides and then do 3 double crochets for our corners. So we've already completed our first double crochet. Let's do 2 more double crochets in the next 2 stitches. And now we're ready for our first point. 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Grab a stitch marker and add it to the center stitch. This will really come in handy later. Next, 3 double crochets in the next 3 stitches. We're creating our next point, 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Grab your stitch marker and add it to the center stitch. And now we're just going to repeat this all the way around. 3 double crochets for the sides and 3 double crochets in the same stitch for the corners, all the way around. When you reach the end, add a slip stitch into the top of the very first stitch that you see. Please remember, if you're doing the chain 2, that it does not count as a stitch. Fasten off and get ready for round 4. For round 4, we're going to be working with an orange color. I'm using the StyleCraft Special DK, and the name of this color is called Spice. To begin, fasten on however you like best into the middle stitch of those 3 that we did on the side. Essentially 3 stitches before that first stitch marker. Chain 2. Remember, this does not serve as our first double, and then a double crochet into the same stitch. Now we're just going to do double crochets until we reach the first stitch marker. Remove your stitch marker and add 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Grab your stitch marker and put it into the center stitch. Now 5 double crochets into the next 5 stitches. We've reached our next corner or point. Remove your stitch marker and add 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Continue this all the way around, 5 double crochets for the sides, and then 3 double crochets into the same stitch wherever there's a stitch marker. If you've been following along with me, you should see 2 stitches left after your final corner or point. Add a double crochet into each. And then add a slip stitch into the first stitch that you see available. Chain 2 and add a double crochet into the same stitch. Continue adding double crochets into each stitch until you reach the stitch marker. Remove your stitch marker and add 3 double crochets to create your corner. For this round, you want to see 7 double crochets on your sides, and then as always, you're creating 3 double crochets in your corners. Quick tip here, sometimes it looks like there's an extra stitch next to that chain 2. That is not an extra stitch. Just double check that you only have 7 double crochets for your sides. Remember that chain 2 does not serve as a double crochet. For the final round, we're back to the brown color. Mine is called Walnut, and we're going to be working half double crochets for this round. To begin, fasten on however you like best. I did it 4 stitches before the corner. Chain 1 and add a half double crochet into the same stitch. Again, if you don't like working this way, you can do a standing half double crochet to replace that, or you can just simply do a chain 2. And then continue on in each stitch doing a half double crochet. And then 3 half double crochets into the corner spots. For this round, you want to see 9 half double crochets for your sides and 3 half double crochets for your corners or your points. Continue this all the way around. To complete the round, add a slip stitch into the first available stitch that you see and fasten off. To create a half hexagon, it's really easy to do. We're just going to be creating half of a full hexagon here. So to begin, create a magic circle, and then chain 3. This is going to serve as your first double crochet. Next, add 6 more double crochets, giving you a total of 7. Once you're sure that you have 7, pull on your tail to cinch it tight. And leave this circle as is. We're creating a half circle. Chain 3 and turn. For round 2, we want to increase our circle again, but instead of creating 14 double crochets total, we only need 13. So to begin, add a double crochet into the same stitch that we created our chain, and continue on adding 2 double crochets into every stitch. Except for the very last stitch, just add 1. Like I said, the goal here is just to make sure that you have 13 double crochets when you're completed with this round. For the half hexagon, we need to create 2 points instead of 6. To create our half hexagon, fasten onto the side, however you like best, and create a chain 3. This is going to serve as your first double crochet. Next, add a double crochet into the same stitch. This is essentially like half of a point or a corner. And just like for the whole hexagon, we want to complete 3 double crochets for the sides and 3 double crochets for the corners. So let's begin that. 3 double crochets into the next 3 stitches. Three double crochets into the same stitch to form our first point. Grab a stitch marker and put it into the center stitch. Next, add a double crochet into the next 3 stitches to create your side. We're back to a point, 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Add a stitch marker, 3 double crochets in the next 3 stitches. And now we're back to a half of a point or corner. Let's add 2 double crochets into the same stitch. Fasten off and get ready for the next round. Now we're ready for our orange, and it's basically the same sequence. We're going to fasten into the top of the first stitch, chain 3 to serve as your first double crochet, and then add another double crochet into the same stitch. This is essentially like the half of a point. Now instead of 3 double crochets on the sides, we're moving up to 5 double crochets. Create 5 double crochets into the next 5 stitches. Three double crochets into the same stitch to create your corner or your point. Five double crochets into the next 5 stitches. Three double crochets into the same stitch to create your corner. Working the final side, 5 double crochets into the next 5 stitches. You should have 1 remaining stitch left. Add 2 double crochets into that stitch. Instead of fastening off, we're doing another round of orange. Chain 3 and turn. Add a double crochet into the same stitch. Working our way back up to the stitch marker, we need to add 7 double crochets into the next 7 stitches to form our side. And you know the drill. Remove your stitch marker, 3 double crochets into the same stitch to form your corner or point. Continue across, 7 double crochets in the next 7 stitches. And repeat to the end. When you reach the end, you should see 1 remaining stitch. Add 2 double crochets to complete that last half of a corner. Fasten off, and then you're ready for round 6. And now for the final round, we're back to our brown, and we're going to be working with half double crochets. Fasten on to the side, chain 2 to serve as your first half double, add a half double crochet into the same stitch. That's essentially half of a corner or a point. And now it's time to work a side. We want to do 9 half double crochets into the next 9 stitches. Three half double crochets to form your point. Moving on to the side, you know the deal. 9 half double crochets into the next 9 stitches. Add 3 half doubles into the spot with your stitch marker. And continue on. And after you've completed your last 9 half double crochets for the final side, you should have 1 stitch left. Add 2 half doubles into the same stitch. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. To begin the pointed half hexagon, we're going to do the same setup that we did for the half hexagon for the center. As a recap, we did 7 double crochets for round 1, and then for round 2, we completed 13 double crochets. If you skipped ahead, please refer back to that tutorial for those first 2 rounds. To begin, fasten on however you like best into the side and chain 3. This is going to serve as your first double crochet. Next, add a double crochet into the next stitch. We're getting ready to add our first point. Add 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Grab a stitch marker and put it into the center stitch. And now we need to do 3 double crochets to form a side. Add a double crochet into the next 3 stitches. We're back to a point. Add 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Add a stitch marker to the center stitch. We're making another side, 3 double crochets into the next 3 stitches. We're back to a point, 3 double crochets into the same stitch. You should have 2 remaining stitches left to work into. Add a double crochet into the next 2 stitches. Fasten off, and then you're ready for round 4. Grabbing our orange and working round 4, fasten into the side and chain 3 to serve as your first double crochet. And now we're just going to add a double crochet into the next 2 stitches, giving you 3 total on that side. We've reached the stitch marker and a point, so add 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Just like our regular hexagons, now we're up to 5 double crochets for our sides. So add 5 double crochets into the next 5 stitches until you reach that stitch marker. Create your point, 3 double crochets in the same stitch. And continue across, repeating this sequence. After your final corner or point, you should have 3 stitches remaining. Add a double crochet in those next 3 stitches. You're going to chain 3 and turn. This does serve as your first double crochet. And now you should have 3 more stitches before that stitch marker. Go ahead and add a double crochet into those next 3 stitches, giving you a total of 4 on that side. Continue with the sequence, adding your 3 double crochets to form your point. For these sides, you'll want to see 7 double crochets before the next stitch marker. And on the final side, you should see 4 stitches remaining. Fasten off, and we're ready for the final round. For the final round in our brown, we're going to be doing half double crochets like we did for our regular hexagons. Fasten on and chain 2 to serve as your first half double. You should see 4 remaining stitches before the stitch marker. Go ahead and add your half double crochets into each stitch, giving you a total of 5 on that side. Remove your stitch marker, add 3 double crochets into the same stitch to make your point. And now you should have 9 stitches remaining before the next point. Go ahead and continue up, creating 9 half double crochets in those next 9 stitches. Continue the sequence all the way around, Add 5 half double crochets into those final 5 stitches, and then you're all finished. To join the pieces together, I use one of my favorite stitches, which is the invisible join or the mattress stitch, which creates a really lovely flat seam on both the front and the back of your project. I'm not going to do a step-by-step tutorial here because I do have a couple of videos where I do show in detail how to do this. You can find a link to those in the description box below the video, as well as at the end of this video. Essentially, all you're going to do is take a stretch of yarn on a needle and work it back and forth in the center of the stitches in a zigzag fashion to join the pieces together. For the intersections, I do the same thing. I zigzag my way up, just making sure that I'm catching the center of each point. Again, this is a very forgiving technique. You'll see once you start getting the hang of this that everything connects really beautifully. You may have noticed that some of these centers have a floral appearance. I did not do a video tutorial for this, but if you're interested in learning how I made those, I've added the pattern in the description box below the video. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.